The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Tastes just like candy.
Ask for Candy, the official podcast for single women over 35. Who I am Candace Harper, lovecoach.com, honey. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships and seductive singlehoods. And I believe that every one of us deserves the love that makes us bioluminescent. And you are listening to Ask for Candy on Armed Radio, maybe on your smart device with the TuneIn app, or you're listening in the garden. You know I love the garden, honey, on armedradioglobal.com. We're also now available on iHeartRadio, so if you have an Alexa, you can ask for Candy. Maybe you're joining us live on Facebook. I see Lee got here. I see David's here. I see people are trickling in. This is going to be a good conversation tonight, let me tell you. And if you are listening on Facebook or you're watching us on Facebook, I want you to go on over to the Creative Love Collective and join that group. That's my group. And I want you to go to Armed Radio Group News so you can always keep up with what we're doing. And if you have questions and you're not on Facebook Live and you're out there in the Webiverse listening, you can call in 1-800-508-5431 and we will answer your questions or your comments. Or if you're shy and introverted, you can email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com and I'll answer all of your questions in a later broadcast. So like I said, I'm Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. And my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And tonight I am coming to you from the V Club. Let me hear you, ladies. I got a studio audience. Gorgeous ladies tonight, and you're all going to get to meet them one by one. We're going to have a very juicy conversation. So now you guys know, those of you who tune in, what this show is about. For the new people, each week we have lively conversations about different topics relating to love and relationships. Sometimes I bring on special guests for games and activities. Always we get a chance to laugh or cry or learn something new. And that is why this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your love situation. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. And most importantly, we want everyone to know how to create a love that is perfectly tailored for you. And so we're going to be continuing our brand new series. You know, the series right now is Falling in Love, the era of new beginnings. And so this season, it's a journey through what it takes to attract a healthy love, create healthy relationships, even if you're already in a crappy one. You can turn it all around if you stick with us through this season. And tonight, we're going to be focused on what to do, and this is for the ladies. Gentlemen, stay and listen to this because I want you in on this conversation too. What to do if you have given up the kitty too soon. I will tell you that I have a client who came to me this week with this problem. I was like, this is going to be perfect for my V Club ladies. Let me hear you. Right? And when I told them about it, everybody got excited because here's the thing. If you've ever been single as a woman for any period of time, there's going to be times where you question yourself, right? You have moments of second guessing, moments of feeling like maybe you did or did not do the right thing. I mean, we all do. Men do that too, I think. We just do it on a whole nother level. So now the goal of this show is to take the shame out of the sexual encounters. We want to have, we as women, we want to be behaving as though we are worth more than our pussy because we are. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Let me hear an amen. Amen. And we want to help take the seriousness out of starting new relationships. I feel like, guys, you might be on board for that sort of thing. I see Patrick has joined us and Kenny. We got a whole lot of boys in the room. Okay. And a whole lot of women here. This is perfect because you guys can really interact. So now, ideally, there is this like beautiful pace to how we get to know each other romantically, right? Like if you have it your way, there's like a courting period where you get to take each other's emotional temperature and get to understand each other, find out what we have in common or how we may or may not be aligned with each other, and take deliberate steps towards creating a lasting relationship based on trust, intuition, and mutual love and acceptance, right? That's the ideal. That's how we want it to happen, right? Yeah. But let's be realistic. How does it often go? We've all been there. For whatever reason, we went and got naked with someone that we really actually wanted to know on a deeper level, but, maybe got a few drinks in us. And so then we start to feel as women that like we have no leverage sometimes. Like sometimes we feel like we've given up the mystique. And, we don't know what to do with it. So it's whether it's that he stopped calling or that he goes into hypersexual mode, and now he's treating us like we're cheap, it turns us off. And, we convince ourselves that we have botched the situation. So a lot of times what we do is we try to restore our mystique and we try to get him to view us as unattainable again, because we feel like, guys, when you view us as unattainable, it's like we have a bargaining chip. Right? Like that's how we're taught to be, to sort of bargain for our value, bargain for our relationships, and kind of sell you on us. And unfortunately, that's the kind of culture that we live in. However, there is a better way. So I had a client come to me, like I said, this week, and what she was telling me is that she met somebody that she really liked, and on the first day got really drunk and ended up going down on him in a hotel hallway. Now, I know people out there, my ladies are laughing, the guys out there, you're like, oh. See, this is the thing. This is why we don't deal in shame. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we've all done something that was not ideal, right? We've all done something that it may not be that particular thing that we feel like goes against whatever we were taught, or goes against whatever we feel like we're trying to portray about ourselves. We've all been there. So, immediately we want to get out of that shame story, because if we didn't have that shame story, we might not even be single, right? A lot of times it's the wrong making of ourselves that keeps us single. So right off the bat, we need to stop the shame spiral and get into what might need to be done in order to fix this faux pas, if that's what we want to call it. Because sometimes mistakes aren't necessarily mistakes. They're exactly what we needed to do in order to, really have the truth happen. And if that means that somebody left behind our mistake, they've actually sometimes done us a favor. So I say that a man who really just wants to have sex isn't going to wait around continually getting to know you, and it isn't a man who just wants to have sex isn't going to wait around continually getting to know you. And while yes, when a man is genuinely interested in knowing you, your selectivity can be very attractive and give him something to conquer. Ultimately, an authentic connective partnership can happen before or after you've had sex. It all depends on our willingness to let go of certain attachments, beliefs, and paradigms. So I actually came up with 5 steps for what you can do when you're in the position that my client was in, where or still is in, where you've had sex with someone too soon, or you feel like you've had sex with someone too soon, and now you don't know what to do. Now, this also assumes that the person is still pursuing you, or still possibly interested, or you're still in contact with that person. If you have sex with someone and they ghost, let them go. It's okay. You'll be all right. Especially, if it was consensual sex and you enjoyed it, hey, it's a positive. Let them go. It's okay. Every rejection is a favor. One thing we don't want to do is get shameful and emotionally heavy, because that doesn't work for starting a new relationship, and it doesn't even work for the old relationships either. So I have these 5 steps. These ladies are going to come in and they're going to help me sort of hash through them. We're going to talk about the 5 different steps of what to do almost immediately when you start to feel that shame story, when you start to go into oh, now I need to have a heavy conversation with him. Now I need to do something to fix this and to make it okay. And Roy and Charles and Rory, who just came in, and Kenny, who just came in, you guys feel free. All of you who are on the Facebook, feel free to chime in, because I love it when guys give their point of view. If you feel like the things that I'm talking about are working, the things that we come up with, because we're going to be co-creating together. I'm going to have different ladies come and sit next to me. Feel free to let us know. Be like, no, girls, you're way off, if that's the case. But if not, we don't mind a little bit of a support and thumbs up. So first, I'm going to have the lovely Emily from Sweden. Come on in, Emily.
Hi everyone. Hi.
So tell the audience, there's a whole lot of guys out there, tell them a little bit about yourself just to get related, a little bit of a personal, whatever you want to share. Feel comfortable.
Hi everyone. As you said, my name is Emily. I'm from Sweden. I'm a positive psychological coach. And my big passion is female empowerment and trying to, just as we talked about, like how do we label ourselves and what kind of demands do we put on ourselves, and also like put our own values and goals for everything else.
Yeah. See, perfect. Like Jamie likes to say, serendipity.
Yeah.
Jamie's coming on later. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, that's perfect. I love it. Okay, so now I say in this situation, back to the client situation, the first step when you feel like you've had sex with someone too soon as a woman, I say the first thing to do is immediately forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Like whatever shame spiral you may be going down, recognize that although you may have broken a promise to yourself, God, or your moral compass, whatever, the shaming is only going to make it worse. Like, there's no points in heaven for punishing yourself, right?
No.
So tell me what you think about that. Like, where do you come from as far as that?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Like to try to be self-compassionate about yourself. Like, how would you tell your friend, or what would you say to your friend if she would have?
Yeah.
Would you have told her that she was a whore, or that she made a big mistake? I mean, sometimes we just meet a person and it clicks. You feel like you want to do that at that time, and then like that's what happened. That's the energy, and that's what you wanted at that moment. You shouldn't for that, I believe. Yeah.
I love that you said that about what would you tell your friend, because I think oftentimes, and I was just having this conversation the other day, that we love our friends and we love on our friends and we don't necessarily give ourselves the same. It's like love yourself like you love your friends.
Yeah.
Right?
We were just talking about here earlier that we are so good at coaching and empowering our girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no girl, you're so good, you're so much better than that. Of course, you have so much to give. But when it comes to ourselves, we're like really hard on ourselves and telling ourselves that was really bad, calling ourselves names, trying to talk to ourselves in the same way.
Yeah, I love, yay! Thank you for that, Emily. I think that's an awesome nugget. And Lee says, hello, Emily.
Hi.
That's Lee Schultz. See, the guys are going to talk back. I love it.
That's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Yay! See, it's always good. Like when a group of women get together, there's power in that. Like there's so much to be gained. And I love that you guys are here to listen to it. So next, we're going to do number 2, Miss Courtney. Owner and founder of D Club, who's going to come on later and tell us more about it, right? But right now, we're going to talk about step number 2.
Hi, guys.
So I say, wait, who's talking? Lee says, the question is, why did we do that in that moment? And we often look to our friend for validation. Oh, Lee, I see what you're saying, like when you talk to your friends about it. And yeah, I think that's true. We do often look to our friends for validation. Mm-hmm. And he says that meaning sex. Do you do that, Lee? Like I know there's a little bit of a delay, but answer for me, Lee, as a man, have you ever been in a position where you're like, I had sex with that woman too soon? He says, hello, Courtney.
Hi.
Lee, we're going to be talking, but answer whether you've ever felt that as a man. I'm curious to know. But so, number 2, I say immediately release any judgments that you may have of the guy that you hooked up with. Whether it's that, I mean, if it was consensual, obviously, like that he might have taken advantage, or, he should have been, I don't know, thinking about your heart as opposed to his penis, or, whatever.
I think once you go down that path, he's probably not thinking about your heart.
Right.
Well, I think this goes back to, and this is, I think, what Lee might have been talking about. It goes back to, why are you having sex?
Yeah.
Are you having sex because you want it, or are you trying to get closer to someone? Mm-hmm. That, I think, is a huge distinction.
Yeah.
Using sex to get closer to someone, questionable strategy.
Yes, I totally agree.
Ever. Not only on the first date, ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Having sex because you want to have sex, fabulous strategy. Right?
Like because you want to, and also because you're already feeling a closeness. Yeah. Like you guys we had like 2 hours of juicy conversation before we even started this podcast, right? Yeah. And we were talking earlier about how sex is an expression of how you feel about someone, or it can be an expression of how you feel about someone. And a lot of times we think that it's the actual intimacy, or we think it's the act of getting close, but it's like you're saying, it's like, it's either something you do because you enjoy it and you just want to have fun with it. It's definitely not something you do to cause the connection.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And we talk, and I think that a lot of women, a lot of people overall confuse that. It's a misconception because it feels like it should cause a connection. And it really does for a lot of women, right?
Yeah.
Because it's our hormones. Yeah, it's like, he's so close to me, he's inside me, and I'm connected with him now. It doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah.
Not to cause that. But if the person loves you or likes you, then most will improve the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. So that also, I think, helps to sort of diffuse that feeling of like, he doesn't like me the way that I want him to like me. And we can kind of like release him from that prison of like, he took advantage, or like, how did he let this happen? And, whatever, the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Oh, definitely. Well, we're both adults, right? I mean, you sort of have to hold yourself responsible. I don't think we can ever hold the other person responsible upon us too. Why did we do? We did it for the right reasons, because we were horny.
Right? That's a good reason. What did Lee say? He says, as a man, I have been in that position, younger years that may not have mattered. Today, I want closeness and intimacy. Oh, Lee, I love that. It's time we both feel the time is right. Yes.
Lee, you're wonderful.
See, I know, right? He's actually a very good-looking guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know Lee since high school.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. We might be making a love match here. So wait, Catherine hi, Catherine, just joined us. So yeah, thank you so much, Courtney. I feel very fortunate because we've gathered together a group of wise women. So we're going to get a lot of juicy nuggets. So, you definitely want to stick around for the whole thing. And for number 3, the third step is all about that entangled, serious, shaming discussion that we women often want to have. Yes, you can give us some likes for that, some thumbs up for that. Often we want to go into that, now we need to talk because something has happened. And coming up next is my new friend, Sarah. We're going to talk about step 3.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, darling. We're the red dress twins.
Ladies
tonight,
in red.
Right? We brought all our power, all our feminine energy. So now I feel like, before we go to that place where, we women, we like to have a serious conversation, right?
Yeah.
We like that phrase, we need to talk. And I feel like that's a phrase that a lot of men are afraid of. But I feel like before we go there, it's like getting clear about if you even want to be with this person.
Absolutely.
Right? What do you think? Tell us, Sarah, because you're married, right?
Yeah.
She's coming from a place of like...
So I have some girlfriends who have been out on dates with guys, and they experience a phenomenon that I like to call Sahara Desert vagina, which is where they're out on the date with this guy and they're hanging out with him and they're repulsed by him, but somehow they end up becoming intimate with him. Like little situations will happen and they'll kind of be like, well, you hear God is telling her, I don't really like this guy. But she still continues on with the dates.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's having sex with him. And then she's kind of like feeling bad about herself because she didn't hear from the guy. And she's like, oh, like, I'm a bad person. And it's like, did you even like him in the first place?
Right.
Were you ever even really attracted to him? Like, is there anything about him that you were even attracted to in the initial phase?
Yeah.
So, I think
often the answer is no.
And 9 out of 10 times, that guy that didn't call you back, if you're really honest with yourself, you didn't even really like him that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And then we're there like punishing ourselves and crying to our girlfriends, and it's like, dude, I if I'm honest, I didn't even really like him.
Right?
So why am I being so dramatic about all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I always feel like, too, it's very attached. I was just talking to my best friend the other night. It's very attached to what our agenda might be, too. So it's like, okay, if we decide that we want to be in a relationship, or we want to get married, or we want to get this guy, or, any guy, it's like we will sort of ignore the part of us that's saying we don't really like him and do all of the things that you're talking about. Like, we'll go ahead and end up in a sexual situation with him, or, we'll be trying to, like, spend time with him. Meanwhile, our gut is like, no.
Yeah, and our bodies respond. I think that's something that, like, people don't really talk about, is like, it's kind of like your mind might be telling you that you're attracted to someone, but your body, like you know in your body if you're actually really attracted to someone or not. And so many times we ignore that because the guy has a great job. We ignore that because we, like you were saying earlier, like we really want to be with somebody and we don't really care who that somebody is.
Yeah.
You know, but your body knows.
Yeah.
And I think that if we are to connect with that as women, that's going to be a lot more powerful than just, you know, just ignoring the way that we feel.
Right? Absolutely. And I feel like the takeaway there is like really get in touch with, like listen to yourself.
Get your body.
Yeah, your body tells you, it really does.
It does.
Yeah.
Like your cells know.
Yeah.
Your cells know if it's a Sahara Desert vagina situation or if you're like going to be really into it. Your body tells you.
I love that term because I actually experienced, I mean TMI, but I actually experienced that when I was in an abusive relationship.
Yes, of course.
You know, when it started to get to a point, we were talking about controlling relationships earlier, and when I was in a controlling relationship, I experienced that, and I started to think it was something like, am I like going through early menopause? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
But you're right. The body says, and I actually wrote a blog post called Your Vagina is Talking.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how our vagina talks to us.
That's very fun. It does. It's literally like, you're not listening, but I'm going to try and tell you in any way that I can.
Yeah.
You can buy that loop, but I'm not going to stop.
Right?
You know?
So that's number 3. Like, really listen to your body and get clear and find out if that's really what you even want, right?
Yeah.
Like, just be in your truth about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, thank
Thanks for having
you.
me.
Oh my goodness, yay. This is like, I love the energy. I love this whole like situation. I think it's beautiful. I feel like we're whizzing. The hour always goes by very quickly. It always whizzes by really quickly. D'Angelo has joined us. He says, beautiful atmosphere. And he says that what Lee said was powerful. What did we miss that Lee said? Hold on a second. So D'Angelo joined, Julie joined. What did you say? Oh, that was what Lee was saying before about as a man, you know, who's a mature man who's also dating, he feels like it's important to have intimacy and closeness. And we're going to talk about that at the end, like actually being able to get back to a point where you can develop that intimacy and how to like sort of flip it so that you're not feeling like you need the pussy to leverage and it's not about the sex. Like the sex is just an expression. It's an important expression, but it's an expression of the love and the caring. Are we ready to do step 4? Coming in for step 4. Yay.
Yay.
Welcome, Jamie.
Hi.
Yay.
Hey, everybody.
So Jamie's also going to tell us a little bit about V Club later because Jamie works here at V Club, right? Mm-hmm. So, but before we do that, we're going to talk about step 4. So I feel like for step 4, I say, you know, once you're clear about what you want, once you've listened to your body, like Sarah and I were talking about, and you're like, I know that I do actually, that this person is a potential, it's time to now have this conversation, right? It's time to like, you know, what is the conversation after you've had sex and you feel that insecurity, but you know you like this person. So what do you think about that, Jamie? I know the structure I think it should be, but I want you to share like.
Yeah, well, I think it's absolutely never too late. You know, like if you decide to go for it and date number 1, you know, and it was your choice and you enjoyed it, fantastic, celebrate that. But if the next day you feel like, I want to take a step back, that's okay. I like to think of it as, you know, let's slow down, let's savor this phase. If we want to see each other again, let's see what it's like when, you know, stretch out our other ways of connecting, right? Like conversation and, you know, on dates and whatever it is you choose to do. I really think that for me, thinking of each phase of the relationship holding so many different experiences and gifts, you know, you can look at it like that with your partner, and if you have a partner who's like, yeah, let's do that, fantastic. If it doesn't match what you want, I would say maybe not, because it's really important to know what you want, like you talked about, and your limitations, your boundaries. Establish those in the beginning. Ultimately, you want to have a partner who listens to that and honors that.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you can establish that kind of awareness around what you want and communicating that early on, you will know early on if this is somebody that's worth your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I also think like what you're saying is exactly right. In the communication, like when you have that communication, you get to learn if they are on board for what it is that you want.
Yes.
Like if you do like them in a way that seems like you might want them for a relationship, having the and being willing to have it without, you know, the other steps we talked about before, like no wrong making, no judgments, no, you know, like let's make this heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this is what happened between us, and I'd like to, I think you said take it back a step or something like that. Yeah, I'd like to slow it down, however you want to say it, and be willing to have that communication so you can find out where he's even at.
Right.
Which we don't often very much do. Like we usually just, like we were talking about earlier, we talk to our girlfriends and we talk to whoever else, rather than actually talk to him, and it's a good opportunity, right?
Right. And I think about it like food, right? So it's like
Everything's like food.
sometimes I have McDonald's. Don't tell anybody that. But you know, it's like, do you want to have McDonald's every day? You know? So maybe you do, but you know, it's nice to have like a really nice meal and chew your food.
Yeah.
You know, slowly savor the taste.
I like that word, savor.
Yeah. Because there's a lot to be enjoyed, especially when you're first getting to know someone. It's nice to stretch those out, because think about like jumping into, you know, oh, we gotta live together all of a sudden, and oh, let's get married all of a sudden, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you wanna remember those early days, and you know.
Sounded a little bit.
That's what I say, but everybody's different, and I know couples who have gone faster, you know, and that's been wonderful for them. So I think, just like we've said all night tonight, is body and that inner navigation system that every person has, really, and women are blessed with a very powerful intuition. I'll have to have a relationship with, right? You have to listen to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
And on top of that, I want to add to that with this conversation is the vulnerability factor. Like, it's okay if you broke the seal, you broke the sex seal too early in your mind. It's okay to let them know that you want to savor it and slow it down, but also that you enjoyed the sex.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed it. I mean, if you didn't, you didn't. But if you did, it's okay to have that be part of the conversation, because then it lets them know, I'm not slowing it down because I don't like you or I didn't like it. I just want to actually have this be something real.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you want to communicate all of it.
I think it's powerful to own that.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
own that you have a great time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if a guy is like, oh, well, you know, showed me everything and now you're holding back or whatever, then you don't want to be with that person.
Exactly. Like, if he can't get to a point where he understands, and you're coming from like authenticity and saying what's really true for you, if he can't get there with you, then it's okay. Like, you can go on, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Sarah's like, yes. Sarah's our married lady. She's like, yes. Right? Yay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. We can bring you back later. And Lee said hi, Jamie. He said he likes food too. And hi, I'm joined, and Andrew. We have all the men are on the Facebook Live tonight. I just want you guys to know. All right, so that's a good thing. I feel like it's good for interaction. So we have one more step. Oh my goodness. So this is if he says yes, and he's wanting to wipe the slate clean and savor and start all over again, like we were talking about. And I have Miss Kyla here, who's going to come in. Come on in, Miss Kyla. So we're going to talk about, what to do next, as far as like, if he's on board for like slowing it down and savoring it, and you're ready to like move forward. What are your thoughts about that? Like, do you have any experience with it, or do you, what are your initial feelings? What's your intuition telling you about what's?
My initial feelings, I'm happy that he's like actually like a mature adult who's ready to do that. And I feel like one thing I want to pay attention to in myself during that time is like, I'm also seeing him for him and not seeing him in this like, okay, we've had sex, we have to make this work now.
Yes.
Being really honest with myself and being really honest with him. I feel like it's one of those things too where I need to understand like we're both sexual beings, like we both want each other clearly, and I feel like there are going to be moments where I feel like I would like to have sex with him again, and I sit and I think about why that is and if that matches my intentions for this. But if it does, then I'm not going to hold myself back at the same time. But if it doesn't, then I'm going to think about what we're really doing here and have an honest talk.
Got it. Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's exactly it. And I feel like, we were saying earlier, like a good relationship is a series of moments that worked, right? So that doesn't mean that there's now rules. It's just being able to stay in integrity with what you say that you want, right?
Yeah.
So if I say I want to slow it down and I'm in integrity with slowing it down, it doesn't mean that I have to get mad every time he tries to make a sexual advance or anything like that. I can be comfortable with how it's going to go, right? I think that's what I hear.
Yeah, and I feel like there is something to be upset every time he makes a sexual advance. We've had this conversation.
Like, don't text me.
Yeah, because you should be respecting my decision, and you decided to join in with me on that decision. And if you're going back on your word, that's your problem. But
That's a good point.
But to me, if like we're both there and we're both kind of like, well, we just agreed on something, but maybe we could keep going. I want to like ask myself, where is that really coming from? Is that coming from keeping him around? Is that coming from, okay, no, I'm horny? Or is that coming from like, no, like I feel a connection with him and I want to continue this, but like we could be sexual, do that.
Yeah. I think you make a really good point. I think that if he does agree with you and is like, yeah, let's slow it down and savor it, and then he's hypersexual, then he is going against the word that he gave. However, I come from the school of and here's the thing, it's not like an exact science because I'm good for making people wrong too, but I think there's no productivity in making the other person wrong. It's just deciding for yourself, you know what I mean, what your boundary is, and then if it's a no, it's a no, and then you do what you need to do to disconnect from it. But I also think that what we don't want to do when we say slow it down and savor it is completely dampen the sexuality. Because, like we were talking about before, you still want them to be sexually attracted to you, right? Like you still want them to have those urges, and clearly, I think a lot of times men, that is the way they think they're connecting, and that's what they interpret connecting as. And so sometimes they need to be led a little bit with that in a very feminine way.
Yes, and I think too, maybe it's like a conversation about like what are the boundaries? Like where is it, like being really honest and open about that, because like we were saying earlier, that's what you got. So like let's be really honest about like, okay, like what does not having sex mean for you? Is that oral sex? Is that like what are we doing? Like having that conversation, because like maybe there are certain things that you feel like, okay, this is fine, that's not, and like you want to find out what that is for him.
Yeah, no, totally. And what you're totally getting into is partnership. Like it's an opportunity to practice partnership with this person. That's the whole point of a relationship, right? You're in a partnership. Like how can we work this out? If he's willing and you're willing, it's like it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
I was worried because she's like, I'm the young one. I'm only 22. I'm like, honey, you're gonna have things to say. That are nuggets. Thank you, Donna. Appreciate it. So this is the lovely ladies that are at the V Club tonight. So let's, put it all together to wrap it up. 5 steps. Number 1, immediately forgive yourself. Number 2, release the judgments you may have around the person that you had sex with. And you know what, Lee, because you communicated that this is something that you're present to too, I feel like I've been excluding the men. So for the men, this is for you too. Like, if you're a relationship-minded man, I don't want to make the assumption that all men are callous about sex. I feel like that's an assumption that's often made, right? So sometimes maybe you find yourselves like, oh, maybe I rushed it. I didn't want it to go this fast. And how do I slow it down? And so the same thing applies for you. Like, forgive yourself for thinking with your dick. Release any judgments that you might have developed around the woman that you hook up with. And, before you make it all heavy and get into some sort of discussion about it, like, get clear with yourself. You know, do I see this person as relationship material? Once you're clear, then have that conversation, and have that conversation in a way that says exactly what's true for you. Vulnerable, like, I like you, I enjoyed the sex, it was all fun, it was all good for me, but I would like to slow it down, and just say what it is. A lot of times I think that we're afraid to say what it is. You know, we're afraid to like really be flat about what our feelings really are, because that is a very vulnerable place to be. And if they're on board, just be willing to just be in integrity with your word and always be in conversation and begin to practice partnership. So that's it for the 5 steps. Does anybody have anything that came up for them that they were like, they have a burning thing that they want to say about it, or that, you know, anybody want to share anything personal, or everybody's looking at me like, oh I don't know about this part.
Maybe the part about releasing judgment, both for yourself and the other person. I think that, like,
come back, Kyla.
Come back. Yeah, releasing judgment for yourself and the other person. I think that's really important because, you know, like, you don't want to hold shame. That's a terrible thing to do to yourself, and you don't want to do that to other people. I don't know if you're necessarily ready to be dating and meeting people if you're judging everybody for situations that have context to them, and you're like wrapping that up to their whole personality. I think it's important to like know that, like, you know, like, we both were active when we did, like, and it was consensual, like, saying it's consensual. And just like being okay with it is what it is. It's another. Maybe it, right? We'll just go separate ways and maybe we can make it work, but I don't think that it necessarily means you need to throw a label on a person.
Yeah.
You don't need labels.
You don't have to attach yourself like a barnacle to a boat.
Yeah.
Which a lot of us do. Lee says, no judgment. If I choose to be intimate, I chose to value her as a woman. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for being a mature man, participating in the conversation. Right? I see Hannah has joined us. So what I would like to do now is just tell you guys a little bit about my coaching program, which is the Secret Art of Seductive Singlehood. And it's a 45-day program, one-on-one. And it's to help single women over 35 discover their purpose, to attract a soulmate who supports them in fulfilling it. And, you know, someone that they can also support. 6 weeks, intense mind, body, and spirit practice. It causes major shifts and transformation in every area of your life. It comes with weekly coaching calls for accountability. And at the end, we've co-created a book that will continue to inspire your love life and transform your life in the future. So it's like reference material that you create for yourself, because I believe that we all know our own answers. We just sometimes need somebody to help us pull them out. So now what I want to talk about is Bee Club. And this amazing space that we're in. Those of you who normally join us and normally watch the show, you see that I'm normally in my kitchen. But today I have this like lovely artwork behind me, this beautiful, beautiful space. If you can see the whole thing, there's like, it's very feminine energy. There's lots of chandeliers. It's just a really great atmosphere and a really great place to be. And Jamie made this lovely sign, welcome to the Bee Club, for us. And I want Courtney or Jamie, whoever's coming in, to like come and really talk about Bee Club and its inception. And you guys can even take turns. Like, yeah, both of you can do it on some level, right? Courtney's the owner, right? Owner and founder?
I'm the founder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us all about Bee Club, Courtney.
Jamie. So hi. So the Bee Club is.
We can squeeze Jamie.
Do you want to squeeze in? Squeeze in, yeah.
I don't want to yeah, there you go.
No,
are you okay on that? So tell us about it.
So we're a place, we have awesome classes for women. And what differentiates us is these classes are foundational classes. So it's about relationship psychology, sexual physiology for women, about their own bodies and also about men's bodies. And that differentiates from other classes because it's not DSM, it's not kink, it's really the kind of thing that you sort of have to know to enjoy sex and pleasure. Mm. So that's kind of our pride, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I love being an instructor here. I love meeting all kinds of women who are on this journey to learn more, because think back to your high school sex ed class, like, what did you really learn? All I learned was, God forbid I had sex and I got an STI or, I had to have an abortion or whatever. And I remember those kinds of things. And I remember it being like embarrassing. Nobody wanted to make eye contact. And, come on. So how else do we get our information? Right? We have the internet, we have TV, movies, and, occasionally friends talk to friends. But at this point, we really have to seek out this best way that we getting science-based information. But that's what we offer here, and we provide
also practical,
very practical information.
Yes.
As
No
well.
Kama Sutra or
nobody's gonna pull a muscle with the prior techniques. It's really for everybody and all ages. So.
And our students, let's talk about our students. It's women anywhere from their 40s to, I think, had women even 70s. Really empowering and amazing. Someone came in and she was probably in her 60s, decades, and she was interested in starting again. It's really beautiful stories. It's really...
Yeah, and you guys are located right here in the heart of Chelsea, right on 25th Street. It's 152, 25th Street. And when are your classes normally? And what is sort of the structure? Can someone just sign up and take a package? Or
Exactly. You can sign up for a class. Classes are usually run in the evenings and weekends. We make it pretty easy. The schedule's on the website. What else do we do? We also do awesome events, for example, like this one. Yeah, we have events running quite often, actually. And we also do private sex and relationship coaching.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you to the V Club for hosting. You guys are awesome, right? Now, what I want to go into now, because we'll do all the accolades later, but I do want to go into sort of a Q&A, and I want to popcorn, some sharing, and talk about some things. Sarah, I know you got some stuff burning. When we have a little bit of time, I want us to popcorn some more of this discussion and more interaction with our Facebook Live. I see Hannah joined us, and as people trickle in and have comments and things like that, those of you who are on the Facebook Live, if you have any questions or anything that you want to add, I always say this is a conversation. I know sometimes people watch it like TV because they're like, and then at the end, then you'll comment after. It's like, why not comment while the show is going on? Why not ask your questions now? So, does anybody, do either of you ladies have anything you want to add, or anything you want to question, or anything that's coming up for you? Who has something burning? Everybody got shy.
Putting them on the spot.
Everybody got shy. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about the having sex too soon, because a lot of times what I deal in is discovering your purpose and, being in a space where you feel self-accepted and confident enough that these kinds of problems, when they come up, you easily have the tools. I always say that I'm not a tips and tricks coach, because we were talking about earlier how the tips and tricks will only get you so far, and they can kind of be a manipulation when you don't actually have a good, solid relationship with yourself. It could be along those lines. Do you guys have anything? You have Sarah's brain? Okay, come on in, Sarah. We're going to switch you guys out unless you want to. Come on in, Sarah.
Hi guys, so I've got a question for you. What do you do if you're in a situation where, earlier we were talking about having sex earlier than we wanted to. But if you're in a situation where you're in an intimate relationship with someone and you're kind of feeling like pressure, like you have to have sex when you don't want to, how do you deal and navigate a situation like that?
Yeah, feeling like they're sort of putting the pressure on earlier than you.
No, but you're in a relationship, you're in an intimate relationship with that person, but feel this horrific pressure all the time to have sex with them and you don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's their way of expressing intimacy with you. But you don't want to. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're stressed out, but then sometimes you kind of force yourself to when you don't want to, and then it builds resentment. How do you navigate a situation like that?
I always go first, especially if it's a feeling of a lack of desire. So if I'm in a relationship with that person, so there's already the structure that we are, it's assumed that we are together, and that's that we're already in a sexual relationship, right? But I think that when things like I don't want to, and it's like you brought up earlier, the Sahara Desert thing, like when those feelings come up, it's not just our body saying, oh, you just don't want to have sex. Like emotionally, like what's really going on with me that I'm feeling that disconnect with that person? And also, what is it that I'm ignoring about my own needs that I'm not just talking about it and willing to say, look, I'm not feeling up for it if I'm not saying it. Yeah. If I'm saying it and I'm communicating with that person and they're still like, well, what's the problem or whatever, then it's just a question of self-examination. Like, what is the problem? If I'm in a relationship with you, why don't I want to have sex with you? Because I'm, having issues with my own body? Is it because I don't feel well? Is it because I have a story in my head? You know what I mean?
But that is also like that paradigm of like what separates a relationship from a friendship. And would you all say that it's sex? Do you all think that is what separates a relationship from a friendship? Mm-hmm. Do you all think that that's what it is?
Sex and intimacy.
Sex and intimacy.
Sex and intimacy, yeah.
Because I mean, some people are in relationships where they have like they consider themselves to be in a relationship, but they have sex with other people, which is like a whole nother thing, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm always wondering, I'm always questioning, like, what is that what separates a romantic relationship from friendship? Is it the sex?
Here's the thing about that, though. I think when it comes to the definitions of our relationship, it's really important that we define them for ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's a cultural, societal, this is what a marriage is. But what a marriage is to one couple is not necessarily what a marriage is to another couple.
Right.
And I agree with Courtney, like sex and intimacy is usually the physical, what's in reality of the differentiation between the two things. But there's people who stay married and intimately connected for years and they're not necessarily having sex. Maybe one of them has, some sort of physical illness or something like that. And it doesn't make it any less of a marriage. So it's really about, how you're defining it, and does that really work for you? Like a lot of times I think we get into these situationships and we might be having sex with 5 people while we've got one person at home,
right?
And it's like, are we being honest with ourselves? Does that really work?
Yeah.
Or are we just we've set up this thing that's just kind of like band-aiding over what our real issues might be? Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, and if it works and you're defining it for yourself, then great. But if it doesn't really work and it's not really defined, you're just kind of like doing whatever, it's not healthy.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
Because I have friends that are married and they've been married for a long time and there's just no sex in the relationship. And it kind of got me thinking, it's like, what's the difference between a romantic relationship and a friendship?
Yeah.
Is it the sex?
Yeah.
Right? So it's funny to hear your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Jamie. You wanna come in?
And
switch. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if this is going to really speak to what you were getting at, Sarah, but this idea of desire, right? And women who are in long-term relationships, they're just not going to have spontaneous desire after all of our hormones, kind of go down, after the honeymoon phase. So spontaneous desire, men can have that for a long, long time, where they're ready to go, right? And I think it's a matter of testosterone, how we're built. But for women, we have something called responsive desire. So what that is really good to know about, because in a long-term relationship, if you believe, that sex is important and you see that it's the glue to a relationship, which it often, sex, intimacy, however you just define that for yourself. But if you know this, it's good to know about responsive desire, because that is when you're not necessarily in the mood to have sex. Maybe your partner is like, initiating. And so you in your mind say, you know what, I love this person, and I do think sex is important, and it's good for me as well, and health-wise, we gotta use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So you start in, and you start kissing and all of that, and when we have responsive desire, that means that once we're stimulated physically, we start to get the desire. So maybe the arousal, the physical arousal happens first, and then the desire kicks in. So to know this as a woman, I think is really important. And I think about it a lot because, you know, I have a lot on my mind and I'm not necessarily thinking about sex during the day, you know, and then I might come home to my partner and guess what? He has been thinking about sex
all day long.
and he's like ready to go and I'm kind of like, but okay, let's try it, you know? And as long as you're being true to yourself and really checking in with yourself through each moment, you know, and not just like doing it for the sake of, I gotta please my partner and this is important, I know. Like, not with that attitude. It's gotta be with like a consciousness around, this is really good for me, and it's good for him, our relationship, going to bring us closer. So I'm gonna start and see how I feel after we do smooching or whatever, you know? So I just wanted to bring that up, and I don't know if that, you know, could help any of your friends, because I also know a lot of people, and as women, we can kind of get down on ourselves for just like not being in the mood, and then we think, oh my God, like that must mean I'm not into this person anymore. There's all of those thoughts and fears, you know. But if you know this, that this is the way that we're built, you know.
It might also, I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like it also could be a way to sort of understand if there is an external issue. Like if I'm, you said it's called responsive desire. So if I love the person that I'm with, or I, you know, feel any sort of closeness with the person that I'm with, and I can't get there, I find myself not getting there. I feel like, you know, when we experience what we don't want, it indicates, you know, what could really be going on, or what we do want. And I feel like that could shine a light if there is something that has to do with, you know, the way I feel physically, or, you know, something's going on with me chemically. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Some more information.
Yeah, like just by doing exactly what you're talking about, like being open to, well, let me see how far I can go and see where it gets to and try it. And, you know, hopefully it's just successful and you find that desire, but then if you still can't, then there's probably something more serious, right?
Yeah, and I also want to say what I'm talking about is, you know, a relationship that is going pretty well. You know, like you have a
abuse
good,
or something like that.
right, you have a friendship even with your partner. But I had a client recently, long time, and got to talking, and this was her complaint that she brought in, lack of desire, which is one. But she talked more and more, and I started to see that there's a lot of anger there. And I'll speak for myself, but if I have a lot of anger that I'm sitting on, that needs to be relieved before anything else, right?
Absolutely.
So I need to find a way to get that cleared. And if that's going to couples counseling or coach or whatever, like, take my partner with me and let's figure this out and get the anger out. Because that's going to create a huge wall. I mean, everything else shuts down for me if I'm angry about something.
Absolutely.
Like that. So that's a whole nother layer. I think the emotional piece is important to look at. But
like something needs to be healed.
Something needs to be healed, yeah. So anyway, that's what I want to say.
I love it. All these great ladies. So Lee says, I've been in a relationship when sex never happened, and also when it happened daily. Talk it out, communicate. There may be a good reason, and there may be deeper reasons. So being honest, the relationship with no sex was not intimate. So that's interesting, Lee, because the whole sort of crux of what we're talking about is how, and we've talked about this before on the show, like the difference between intimacy and sex, I feel like. So Lee, basically what you're saying is that it can't be intimate without sex. So you might have to expound on that a little bit. I see Bethal joined us and Jacqueline joined us, and our hour is almost over. It's 8:56. The time goes by so fast, right? I have to acknowledge all these ladies at the V Club for coming on and being brave and speaking your truth and saying what's on your mind. Kyla, And Emily and Sarah and Courtney and Jamie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. Now, what I do at the end of every show, and I knew that I was going to at least have a few people participating, I always give 3 ways through the course of the week before next week to make your love and your life sweeter. So I decided, instead of generating them myself, I decided I was just going to farm from you guys. Like, so come up with like one way that we can offer for everybody, to something to do this week to make your love and your life sweeter. It could have something to do with, if you're in a situation like my client was in, with having sex too soon. It could have something to do with, improving your intimacy, or if you don't want to have sex, any of the things that we talked about, or whatever comes up for you. What's one way? And come up to the mic and let us know. Come on, Emily.
So one thing that I thought about in positive psychology, they are talking a lot about how to practice your strengths, your personal strengths, and not focusing too much on your weaknesses. And there's actually one free test that you can take online via character.com or if it's .org. It takes 20 minutes and you will find out what is your character strengths. And then one of the challenges can be trying to practice your strengths in a new way, or see how do I use my life.
I like that.
And science has shown that this is a good way of feeling more engaged and more motivated in whatever life domain that you're traveling with, enhancing your happiness. So I've tried it, and several people have tried it that I have recommended to.
And what's the website again?
Via Character, so VIA Character in one word, .org, I think. So
Okay, viacharacter.org. We're going to put that link in the comments. Thank you, Emily. So take that test this week. That's one. What's another way to make love? Come on, Sarah. Another way to make love and life sweeter this week.
So one way to make life sweeter, I would say, is to try and surrender a little bit more. You know, we sometimes forget that, well, I believe we're working within a space where we're like at the mercy of this divine universal intelligence, and we don't have to do everything ourselves. Okay, that there's some kind of intelligence that's working in our favor. Sometimes things happen and we get devastated and we wake ourselves up, and then, like, a week later we're like, thank God it happened that way. So I think that one way to make your life sweeter is to just kind of like move with the flow of life and to surrender instead of trying to control everything. Because trying to control everything is just going to make you miserable. And we're not as smart as the universe, right? Even though we like to think we are. We don't see things from that perspective. So I think that that's like something that we can all adapt this week, to just kind of move with the flow of life and that universal intelligence too.
I love it. Move with the flow of life. We got time for one more. Thank you, Sarah. We got about 30 seconds. Go ahead, girl.
This is to follow Sarah's, because I absolutely love life philosophy as well, and I think she said something that's brilliant. I think in a practical level, we can do that by using an improv technique. Basically, you say yes. Someone asks you something, you say yes. Now, okay. You don't want to say that, like, if you're on a first date, like, you don't necessarily have to say yes to sex. But, like, in everything else, whatever people suggest to you, just go with it. And see what happens, because you're actually going to see that you end up doing these things, and you're actually going to be, like, up for a lot more things, and it's going to feel good. So you participate in life more, rather than be like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I'm not going to be comfortable with this. Like, we always limit ourselves.
Absolutely.
Just go with it.
I love it. Say yes. All right, Armed Radio people, until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you're not getting the love you need, just make more, honey, and ask for candy. Thank you, Big Love.